The New York City Football Club finally win on the road in a ho-hum affair. And supporters for New York City, they're asked to help name Supporters Porch. All that and a whole bunch more coming up live on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene el tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Roberto Abramowitz. We were on the call the other night for this game in Ontario where New York City... Roberto, as we get into what is a very detailed live views, we got a lot to cover. And we do have only reportedly... we don't have anything official from MLS, but the discipline has been handed out, apparently. Tom Bogert, with his sources, has been able to share that, but it hasn't been confirmed by the team or anyone in the league yet. So, but we'll give you what we've got there in a couple of minutes. But so consider this. First road win since July 1st, 2023. I know we've said that often. That was in Montreal against CF Montreal. All right. It's the first time scoring 3 goals in a game, 3-2 win in Toronto. First time scoring 3 since defeating Toronto last year in September. And the last time New York City had 3 goals in a road match, you know where that was?
Yes, I do. I was there.
It was in Montreal. It was
Canada, baby.
Eastern playoffs. And New York City won that game 3-1 in what was Wilfred Nancy's last match with the CF Montreal. So,
Whatever happened to him?
The Canadian teams have served New York City well. And
whatever happened to him?
So that he's struggling.
Yeah, feel bad for him.
Look, one thing I said to New York City head coach Nick Cushing as soon as I could after this game is that, everybody's folks, the focus is on the S show, the melee, the post game comments, all that. But the level of getting this win and how they did it, and another successful personnel maneuver by Nick Cushing as far as who he started, who he brought in off the bench, how he adjusted the shape towards the end of the game, which allowed Andres Pereira to get closer to the goal and then score what was eventually the game-winning goal. So, and this is not just about Nick. It's more about and I'm always going to focus on the game when I can, but you've got to talk about this other crap. But it was a great game. It was a great win in Toronto. Toronto is a much improved team under John Herdman. And as far as we knew, Nick Cushing and John Herdman were cordial colleagues, but I don't know if that's the case anymore.
Well, maybe not after post game. The funny thing was that, informally I asked Nick, if he had a conversation with John before game, because, before the game, everybody's walking out on the field and they're talking and they're chatting. And he said, yes, everything was fine. Everything was normal. Nothing brought up, nothing, just a normal conversation. And then, it went haywire at the end of the game. And, as you haven't detailed it yet, but we'll go through the suspensions that we believe are coming based on Tom Bogert's report. And Tom always has all these things right. So even though there's nothing official yet, you can pretty much take it to the bank that this is pretty much the way it's going to go. Exactly. And it went pretty much the way I thought it would go, with one exception.
Yeah, good old Richie Larea.
Well, Richie Larea. What's up with that?
I don't know. We're going to have to roll back the tape and see where the hell Richie Larea came from, because he wasn't in the squad. That I don't know where he came from. He was not in the squad, and if you're not in the squad, you're not on the field. So I don't know where he came from. It's pretty. I mean, players, when the game ends, they'll come. The players that weren't in the squad, usually there's a suite or an area available for them to watch the game. And then when the game ends, final whistle, they do come down, and that. But boy, he had to make a pretty quick move to get down to the field for the. But and I played this clip. I don't have it for us here. We have so many other things to go through, and you heard it. Where I talked to Nick this part of the pregame show before the first time they played, which is where at halftime where a lot of the animosity right now is, and the accusations and the denials. I mean, it's pretty thick. But Nick said he didn't know John Herdman that well. I asked him about Herdman because Herdman coached the women's game, New Zealand women and the Canadian women. And Nick coached the Man City women for 7 years. So I thought maybe their paths had crossed on the women's side. And he said, no, just on the men's side. And his last comment, and this is before the first game on March 16th, he said, yeah, he's a really good guy. I don't think those words are, well, at least not right now, are going to come out of the
his opinion might have changed.
Because he being John Herdman, has accused Nick, and this was a post-game comment. He was sitting next to Jonathan Osorio, who's the captain, but wasn't even at Yankee Stadium for the first game because he was injured, Jonathan Osorio. But there was this reference to halftime in the tunnel of Yankee Stadium. And John Herdman says that Nick Cushing punched in the face. He didn't just say he was physically assaulted, or he said punched in the face. Those words, that Nick Cushing punched a 19-year-old, which the only 19-year-old in the squad that day was Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy. But Herdman accused Nick of punching this kid in the face at halftime in the tunnel.
Right. Well, actually, so let's be clear, okay? So there is a tunnel that leads to the main walkway underneath Yankee Stadium, right? Where the dressing rooms are. And so you have New York City's dressing room. There's an empty, okay, so let's do it this way. Hold on. So there's New York City's dressing room here. There's an empty space here. And then there's Toronto's dressing room here. So there are cameras everywhere, except for the fact that in that little area in between the two dressing rooms. Now, based on the reports that was said and what we heard from New York City, that, there were verbal exchanges, but then Nick was pushed into his dressing room, right? So he was pushed into his area, and there's no access to the other area from there. And so he was pushed into there. Then you've got the blind spot, and then you have Toronto's dressing room. So obviously Nick has categorically denied it. And based on the footing, it's sort of hard for him to have done it based on the fact that he was pushed into his own dressing room, into that whole area. Before we used to go down and interview the coaches before, we do it at practice now. So it would be almost impossible for that to have happened. And then obviously you have Nick's denial. And one of the things that I think is key from what Herdman said, and we
do have clips here. So, but go ahead.
But here's what I want people to focus on: who he blames or who he credits for saying that he hit that Nick Cushing. Who he says or how he says that Nick Cushing did this. Okay, how he phrases this is important. Okay, because he doesn't have any first witness of that happening. He didn't see it, and he doesn't have anybody who says he saw it. So he bases it on a report.
Yeah, report from the kid. It's a report from the player. I mean, it's been obvious. But let's hear. So here, there's two clips here. Let's play Nick first. Where he made a statement in the presser, and he pretty much repeated it to me. This is part of my one-on-one with the pregame show. I did ask a bit of a follow-up. There were no follow-ups in the presser, which was the request of media communications for New York City. And my follow-up was really just based on the fact that he was shocked and why. So here's Nick. Statement at your weekly presser regarding the post-game incident. And my thought of anyone that's in this profession or any profession, you were charged with something or alleged that something had happened back on March the 16th, and that is striking a 19-year-old player. That's according to the opposite coach, John Herdman, for Toronto. And John Molinaro from TFC Republic got you afterwards, and you said, I can honestly say as a head coach, I've done 348 games. I've never ever laid a finger on a player. So what is your response now a day later?
Like I said in my statement, I will repeat. The first I heard of the alleged incident was post-Toronto press conference on Saturday, the incident that was 2 months ago. I completely deny any accusation or allegation that I punched or had any kind of violence towards a Toronto player or member of staff. I'm shocked and upset by the allegation. We have proactively, as a club, reached out to MLS to investigate what happened post-match on Saturday, and I will leave it with the legal team and with MLS to continue that investigation. And I think it's inappropriate and actually impossible for me to comment further on that.
All right. And as far as you know, though, prior to this match, you and John Herdman, I know we've talked about it. I think prior to the last match that you guys have a relationship. You've talked about the game before. So is that where the shock comes from?
Yeah, I have huge respect for what John's achieved in the game previously. I said this, I think Toronto are a well-coached team. I think, he is a guy that has coached many games in his career, and ultimately, when we talk about the football and how we, see the game, it's very similar.
Yeah. So, the football, there's no issue. It's so do you glean anything from that? I think he was shocked by it. He hadn't heard about this accusation, and we're going to hear from John Herdman in a moment, because Herdman bumped into Nick in that post-game melee. And so he was asked about that in the post-game presser. It's just, the whole thing is quite odd. And just to elaborate a little bit more, you said it pretty clearly, Roberto. I mean, number one, first thing is that they were exchanging pleasantries pregame, and it was caught on Apple the Apple cameras were on them. So that's number one. All right. And nothing was said between Herdman and Nick then. And then
based on what Nick said, yes.
Yeah. This tunnel area at Yankee Stadium. So there are apparently there were two camera angles, and I can't remember if Herdman says it in this clip or another one. I've only got the one clip here, but he basically says, and I think he reiterates here, that where the incident he's referring to took place, there was no camera angle for that, but he will also refer to maybe some of the other activities going on. So this is Herdman. It's John Molinaro is the TFC Republic reporter who's really kind of done a lot of the footwork here to get the responses from the coaches. But this was Herdman yesterday, actually, after the 24 hours after the game.
Just disappointed that it had kicked off again. That was my disappointment with the whole thing. We finished the game. We were trying to do our thing in our own half, and I felt their players were in our half of the field. They didn't need to be. I think given what had happened in the previous game, you take your 3 points, you shake the referee's hand, and you get it your dressing room. I just felt it was unnecessary what was going on, and he seemed to be at the front of it again. If you go back to the halftime footage, coming off the pitch, he was in the midst of everything in the last game. I did see the footage in the locker room, in the tunnel, of him inciting my players unnecessarily. Our players are just walking to their dressing room. So I got to see some of that behaviour, and I just think it's unnecessary. You had your 3 points, well done. You did a really good job coming into our stadium. You did a good job in New York, making that comeback. I just felt that was unnecessary and, disappointed, really disappointed in myself that I got myself into that situation, but just a little bit emotional because it didn't need to happen. That did not need to happen. Just take your 3 points and get yourself home.
So Herdman is claiming that Nick Cushing incited both the halftime incident, which is, I guess, being reinvestigated by MLS. The tapes were sent of this tunnel skirmish, whatever happened there, and MLS decided not to do anything with it. I don't know if that's going to be re-engaged. When Nick refers to the legal team and MLS, I don't know exactly what that means. But also that, Nick, he claimed responsibility, did Herdman, of Nick inciting what happened at the end of the game.
It was funny at the end of the game, as we watched a lot of the videos, and I'm sure a lot of people who are following us have, checked out the videos that have been posted on social media. And the one that's very, very clear is that Nick Cushing is walking off the field away from things that are happening. He's got his hands in his pocket, and John Herdman comes and pushes him, makes contact with him and pushes him. He bumped. Yeah, well, it's a bump, it's a push, whatever you want to.
No, those are two different things. A bump is different than a push. I'm just saying.
Okay, fine. So
if you push somebody, that tends to be a little bit more violent, than the bump.
Well, either way, I see. I'm not seeing much of the difference there. But what I do look at is Nick not taking his hands out of his pocket.
Yeah.
Other people coming in and trying to separate them, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose right next to them. With Tanasijevic and Johnson and Owusu.
Yeah. So and Tanasijevic, it was pretty clear in one. I mean, there were a lot of different videos. So what happens now is people see this in the stands and they just get their phone out, and so there were all kinds of different angles. And it whether he made contact or not, that was not clear. But Tanasijevic definitely with a headbutt of Sean Johnson, and therefore he is going to be suspended 2 games, according to Tom Bogert, whose source within MLS has said that Tanasijevic is the only New York City player or staff member that's going to be disciplined as in terms of suspensions. Maybe there's some fines that are going to happen along the way here. And 3 games for Richie Larea, 3 games suspension. I still wonder what he did and where he came from. 2 games for Prince Owusu. So he was pretty, and here's the Tom Bogert tweet a little bit earlier today. Sean Johnson, for the way I think he went at Tanasijevic, he gets a game. John Herdman gets a game for bumping Nick Cushing, obviously. And for now, that is all that we know. And again, that's from Tom's sources. So
yeah, there's nothing from MLS Communications. Yes, I've been checking throughout this whole deal, and I haven't seen anything yet, either on email or on social. The last thing they have is about Benteke. That can't be stopped. So
yeah, Benteke had a hat trick, baby, to
he did.
Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz. All right, let's talk some football. Huh? Let's do the.
Can we talk about the game?
We can talk about the game. We also, since we are live, we might as well say that Man City has beaten Spurs, and now is just 1 game away from winning it again. The Premier League
victory away. Yeah. So it's funny how Spurs managed to screw Arsenal. Actually, really. This time by losing.
Yeah. There you go.
So all my Arsenal friends right now are looking at me going, "You're a damn team." Well, what are you going to do?
Well, this game in Toronto, it was really entertaining. So if New York City goes up on the Santi Rodriguez penalty, then they go up 2-0 on Malachi Jones, his first start, getting his first goal. And that was just before halftime. So it's 2-0 at halftime. But then Toronto pulls one back. Then Andres Pereira scores to make it 3-1. Then Toronto gets another, Bernardeschi, who's had 7 of the last he's been involved in 7 of their last 10 goals. He's really made a real positive move under Herdman. And then finally they were able to, just kind of see it out, and win a game on the road and win by a goal. And, I just think there were so many positive elements to this. It's just a shame that, the focus and what happened post game. So let's get to the first kind of big moment. So New York City's up 2-1. And Maddie and I were waiting to see when Lorenzo Insigne was going to get into the game. He was on the bench coming off injury. I'm sure you were monitoring the same thing.
Yeah,
well,
we were.
Here he comes. And his first touch, well, here's the call on the English side of radio on the Matt Freese save.
Now it's Bernadeschi off the New York City throw and turnover. Bernadeschi driving on the right, square to Insigne, and a big save, not save! Matt Freese for New York City FC dives to his right. It was Insigne receiving the ball. He was free. He was by himself from 10 yards out. And Freese anticipates, extends, and New York City maintains a 1-goal lead thanks to Freese.
Yeah, it's one of his 9 saves, Roberto. 9
on 11
saves.
shots. And that's a record for him.
Yep.
So
your mark.
Good. He's been playing great. I mean, he really has been playing great. You have, there's nothing else to say is that Matty Ice has been just fantastic for New York City so far this season.
I've never called him Matty Ice, and in that clip, I called him by accident Matty Save. Can we call him Matty Save? I think that makes more sense. I mean, he's the save master, But hey, and now he's going to play against Philadelphia. Before we get to the rest of the highlights, your call on the Pereira goal is fantastic. But let's go to Jim Curtin, because remember, Matty Ice, Matt Freese. No, that's okay. That was the old. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's run Chris Campbell, who put up some good stats after we hear from Jim Curtin. But Matty Freese played with Philadelphia, and with the Union, he only played 15 matches in 4 years. So he was essentially, if Andre Blake was away on international duty or injured, sort of like Luis Barraza with Sean Johnson, then he got a chance to play. This was Jim Curtin earlier today when Matt Freese was brought up, because he'll start against Philadelphia tomorrow night.
Having a great year. You talk about the data. He's had one of the best years statistically for goalkeepers. So happy for Matt. Look, with Matt and with every player, I think every case is different. With Matt, there was because he's such a great human being, great person, there was I don't want to say moral, thing where we decided to let him get a chance to be a starter. But, if you remember, Andre obviously was and still is the top goalkeeper in the league. So Matt didn't get his opportunities. We saw a window where he had a chance to become a starter. It took some time in New York City, but he's playing great right now and flying. So I'm happy for Matt. Tomorrow I want to beat Matt, but make no mistake about that. But I'm proud of what he's done. He's a great kid, great player. And like I said, all these relationships that you have with people through the game, tend to come back at certain moments in your lives and your careers. And Matt did great work for us. I loved working with the kid, but he's on a different team now. I know Matt would probably say the same thing. He still loves Philadelphia. He loved his time here, but he's on a different team now and wants to beat us. So that's the reality of competition. That's the reality of actual development. And he still is, like we've believed for a while, a top goalkeeper.
Well, the thing I take away from that more than anything is that Jim Curtin felt a moral obligation to get him somewhere where he might have a better chance to play. Ironically, it's to New York City, where Luis Barraza was behind Sean Johnson. Barraza essentially given the number 1 job. I'm sure he earned it, but it was based, I think, a lot on his experience. That was at the beginning of the 23 season, and the experience of building out of the back, which Matt Freese told me on the podcast On Frame last week when we really dug in that, that was a big struggle for him early on, but he's become better at that. And he is the clear number 1. I suspect New York City will feel the same way about Luis Barraza at the end of the year. They will help him find a place where he can play, because he is solidly behind Matt Freese, and Freese is only going to get better. I mean, he's only going to get better, and it's good for him. He waited, he worked, he earned it, and now he's the clear number one for New York City.
He is. And actually, the last time that New York City beat Philadelphia, Matt Freese was in goal.
Yeah, for the Eastern
He
Final.
was in for Philly, but yes, he was in goal. And New York City won that game 2-1. That was on their way to winning their first MLS Cup.
Right, he was in for Andre Blake because Blake had COVID, or as Jim Curtin referred to it at the time, a cold. Jim Curtin was so upset after that match.
Yes, he was.
The New York City brought Tylus Magno, this $1 million player, off the bench, and who scores the game-winning goal, and what I think he had 8 starters. It was
like 11 players and like 8 starters
that were out with COVID or a cold. As Jim Curtin put, he was so upset. And I know we both like Jim Curtin. I mean, he is like he's an MLS lifer, but he's just got that Philly attitude, man. It's really, really good.
He's such a good coach, and he gets so much out of his players. He really does. Yeah. He really does. No, so you sort of, I root for him, except on certain occasions.
And he mentioned Freeze Analytics. So Chris Campbell came up with this about Philadelphia goalkeepers. So check it out. So Freeze leads MLS in the goals that were expected to go past him that didn't, at negative 3.70. John McCarthy, LA Galaxy. He's a Philly boy, and he used to be property of Philadelphia Union. He's second in MLS. And then look at the bottom part. Andre Blake and Oliver Semley. Semley will be in goal tomorrow night because Blake is still out. I don't understand the 38th, 39th. That must be 28th, 29th is what he means there in goals and then expected goals. So they're struggling in goals.
But it might be 38th and 39th, considering, there are more than, a lot of teams have used more than one goalkeeper.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That would be okay.
That makes sense. And my first thought was there's only 29 teams, but you're right. So that's a dramatic tweet there from Mr. Chris Campbell.
It is. And it doesn't necessarily, let's take the context again. Doesn't necessarily talk about their abilities directly. It does talk about Philadelphia as a team, the way that they've been defending. And it has been basically a horror show for them, especially lately between injuries. And, some people claim age, that the team is, starting to show its age. And right now they've lost their last 3 home games, which has never happened to them in the past. They've lost their last 3. And, if you're a New York City fan, you hope that somehow continues.
Yeah.
But they had only lost 3 of their previous 59 games in all competitions. Their record before this losing streak is 38 wins, 18 ties, and 3 losses.
Home game, just to
home. Yeah,
I know we were talking about home, but you didn't say it in that little.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Thank you.
Yeah, 3 of their previous. That's unbelievable. Now let's go back to a New York City's win over Toronto. It was fun.
Yes,
it's a fun game to call, and you got to call. Well, we both did, but we're gonna play your game-winning goal call. It made it 3-1, but it was huge because it's 2-1. Pressure's on, and Freeze had just made that save on Insigne. So it goes from being 2-2, possibly, to 3-1. And here's Roberto on the Spanish side with Ariel.
Al choque New York City, gana el balón, Perea, abre por el lado izquierdo, Ojeda se mete al área, Ojeda buscando, viene el pase para Wolf, centro y gol! ¡Es Andrés Perea! ¡Gol de New York City! ¿En qué momento? Cuando Toronto estaba acariciando el empate, Perea toca un balón en un gran centro de Ojeda. Estamos 3-1 New York City.
En el momento justo, cuando más lo necesitaba, cuando más cerca estaba Toronto de conseguir el 2-2, el empate. Este gol de Perea puede ser providencial para New York City, para llevarse un resultado positivo, una victoria, ojalá, para el equipo celeste.
What did Ariel say about the Victoria?
that it was a great way for him to close in, and a great moment for him to come up with a goal, and hopefully it results in a Celeste win.
So there was a so this is where I want to give Nick Cushing and his staff credit for the way they managed this game, because Alonso Martinez, who started at striker, comes out, and Keaton Parks goes in, and Andres Pereira moves into a more advanced position, and Santi Rodriguez goes up to the number 9 again, and it was almost like, I don't know about you, but I don't like seeing Santi in that position. Anyway, he works hard, and I mean he does all the dirty work necessary for the 9, but it may be a more difficult time holding up the ball. But that put Pereira closer to the goal, which enabled him, and he gets into the box. Even if he's deep lying as a midfielder, he will still get himself in the box. But I think it was a little easier for him because of his starting position in this revamped shape, which eventually became 5 at the back when Tanasevic came into the game. So, and then starting Malachi Jones. In the pregame show, Nick basically said over the next 3 games, meaning Toronto, Philadelphia, and the New York Red Bulls, the derby on Saturday, that Malachi would get his chance. Well, it ends up that it happened against Toronto. Now, I want to play this from my interview with Malachi Jones, and I would encourage everybody, the podcast is on Frame, the other one I do. And on that, recently, a Matt Freese interview, 20-plus minutes, and Malachi Jones, 20-plus minutes. And just, especially if you're a New York City supporter, but I think anyone would get something out of listening to Malachi Jones and his story. But we focused on, and I don't know what you think about this, Roberto, but we focused on his wing play in previous matches that he got a chance to play. He had 5 other appearances. No starts. And, well, listen to how I started, and then he agrees. This is Malachi about his wing play. Ask you one thing that I've mentioned on commentary is that, do you feel that there have been a couple of occasions where you've received the ball on the wing, isolated with the defender, but you didn't quite go for it to get around the edge?
Yeah.
Maybe you deferred to Santi or something like that?
I think maybe a little bit of it is a confidence booster thing. That'll come as you know, I get more minutes and I get more into the feel for the game. But I think.
But you agree with that?
I do. I think I do agree, because I think that's something Leon and I have been talking about. Is part of adding tools to your tool belt. I like to cut inside a lot. It's kind of my thing. But being able to go down that sideline and being able to use that left foot as well is also something that I just got to add into the game. It's something I did in college. It's something that I know I'm capable of doing. I just got to see it and kind of go for it, regardless of the results, the mistakes that might happen from it. Just because, again, it's a part of the game that's important and really pivotal to kind of being a successful winger all aboard.
So he likes to drive the ball to inside. Well, he got a shot on Sean Johnson that had to be saved. And then he came to the inside to score his first-time goal. But you know what? Just think about that first yellow card on Rosted. Malachi was trying to get around the edge. He was trying to go around the outside and got taken down. Rosted should have been out of the game in the second half. He took him down on a very similar situation, but no second yellow came out for the referee. And I really think that's where it started getting a little crazy out there, because
it got away from Lucas. Lucas Spala was a referee. It got away from him. It's funny. Lucas Spala came into the game already giving out 3 red cards in this season, and he wound up I guess by the time they reviewed everything, well, he wound up, I think, giving another 3, because one was it Insignia got one at the end of the game.
No,
Bernadeschi rather got one at the end of the game. And then post game, there were 2 more red cards. So, and I can't remember who they were.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
There you go.
Prince Owusu and Strahinja Tanasevic. But then Tanasevic, according to Tom Bogert and his sources, will be suspended for 2 games. The original would be 1 game since it's a red, but it'll be 2 games now because of violent. I don't know what they'll call it, but.
One thing that we haven't done, we should, I don't know if you've put up his tweet, but let's put up the tweet, because of the fact that he explains who's getting suspended and for how long. And yes, we talked about Larrea, but we didn't talk about everybody.
Where were you? Were you sleeping? This was up for about 2 minutes.
Oh, well, maybe I missed it then because I was probably promoting the podcast because
okay.
it's live and we want people to watch it.
Yeah,
So here it is.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
so here's the interesting part. The only player suspended, and I know that Glenn did mention this before, was Strania Tanasievich for New York City. And then Sean Johnson only getting one game. I'm really surprised about that because he went after Tanasievich once, broke away, went after him again, and had him pretty much in a chokehold. So for Sean Johnson to just get one, he got a little bit lucky over there because I thought that he did more than Prince Owusu did. I have no idea what Richie Loria did. We're going to have to go back and find that. And we saw what John Herdman did. And I think that one game for John Herdman is warranted. I think that
I think it's warranted and fortunate. I think it's warranted and fortunate.
Well, why do you think that he does? Why would you think that he deserves more?
Because he made physical contact with the opposing coach. He's claimed that Nick has incited things. He comes up and runs heavily into Nick. It was a bump, but and it happened in front of players. I mean, if there were anything that I saw from either of the coaches, and again, we haven't seen every moment of postgame, so we can't make claims of things that we haven't seen. But what we did see is that one head coach incited or further incited what was going on, and that was John Herdman. So, I mean, that's the way I see it.
Which is why I see that he got a game suspension. That's why I'm saying I don't know if he warranted two, but he might have. I'm not going to argue that point with you. I think that's not a bad way to look at it. I hope you don't think that my way of looking at it isn't bad either, but no, maybe it is.
I'm going to tell you why. Look, and everybody's going to, the consideration will be, we know Nick and we travel with Nick, we talk to Nick, so we're going to take his side. Look, he's denied it. He said he didn't touch anybody, in the tunnel on March the 16th. So for John Herdman, that is character assassination.
Yes,
this
it is
our profession. And it wouldn't matter what profession it is. If you didn't see it or you're not 100% certain, you cannot make a statement like that. And maybe that's why I'm upset that he only got one game. But he shouldn't. I think this is going to be further looked at. I think his comments and then maybe what happened on March 16th, I think that's being investigated. I really do. I'm pretty sure New York City is going to make certain, or at least strongly request to MLS that, hey, that's character assassination. Here's what happens with that. That statement is made, and no matter whether Nick Cushing is exonerated or no matter how this goes, he didn't do it. That little thing about, Cushing, he's the guy that slugged the player, because that's what people remember. And that's what happens in these situations. And shame on John Herdman for using, if you wanted to say there was some physical stuff in the tunnel, it looked like Nick was involved. If you want to go like that, okay, okay. But to say make a direct reference to punching in the face, Roberto, that's it.
I'm 100. Look, I'm 100% on that. I'm looking, but that part I don't think has been investigated. I'm looking at what Herdman did on the field and if he deserves more than one game for what he did on the field.
Fine,
okay,
whatever.
So there's that. So here's my take on this. Okay, because you and I differ a little bit on this. Because what bothers me is that John Herdman says, okay, and this is key to me, and you interpreting it a different way. But he says there's a report that he hit a 19-year-old player on our team. He doesn't say Marshall Rudy told me that Nick Cushing hit him. That's key. That means somebody.
Roberto,
that's the way I look at it, Glenn. I'm sorry.
Wrong.
I don't know if I don't think I'm wrong. It's key.
Listen to me. He used the words punch in the face.
Yes, but he never said the player told me. He said there was a report that he did this. That's what he said.
Punch in the face about a colleague, about somebody in the profession that you've been in.
I know he's not supposed to say it. I'm agreeing with you there. My point is that he doesn't say that Marshall Rudy told him that. Yes, he's saying that there's a report that happened. No, and what makes it good for me, hold on, just let me finish for 1 second. What makes it important for me is that if that happened allegedly in March, There was no investigation. There was no report of that by Toronto to the league saying that happened. They never mentioned it, right?
Well,
They never mentioned it. There was no investigation. There was nothing. And then all of a sudden he brings it up now.
MLS, remember what he said. Herdman said they requested the video in that tunnel from New York after the March 16th game. MLS looked at it and didn't do anything with it because there was nothing in there that they thought would, there was no penalty or discipline to be warranted because of what they saw on this video. And that's where Herdman then goes and well, where the incident happened, there was no video available of it because there wasn't a camera in that area.
Agreed. But again, he doesn't see it and he doesn't say the player said it. He said there's a report.
Roberto, but you're missing the point. You cannot use the words punch in the face.
I agree. I'm not missing that point. I'm agreeing with you. Again, you're not listening to me.
I am listening.
I'm agreeing with you.
I am talking about character assassination.
Yes.
And it's your profession, and a colleague can't say that. And
I agree, Glenn. And I'm just saying that it's even worse that what I'm trying to say, and maybe I'm not coming across clearly.
Let's cut it out.
No, but maybe I know. I want to finish it because I want to be clear. I'm agreeing with you. I think it's terrible. I'm agreeing with everything that you're saying. And I'm saying, to me, it makes it even worse that, one, he didn't see it, and two, allegedly the player didn't tell him that he's basing this character assassination on some vague report because he doesn't say the player said it.
I'll tell you what I said. The report came from a 19-year-old. I'm telling you damn well that player came up and told him about it. And that player,
I don't know. I don't know that because that's not what he said.
Well,
we've got the tapes. Listen to him again.
He said, I will listen to him. And he mentions the team and the individual that have exposed this to him. The team and the individual that it happened to. That's the 19-year-old. Anyway, let's leave it. I'm agitated because of the character assassination mostly.
Yeah, it's 100% unprofessional. It's a terrible thing to do, especially without any sort of proof. 100%. And you don't do that unless you have a freaking smoking gun. Unless you have freaking smoking gun, then you can't make that accusation.
Yeah,
it's character assassination. And I mean, it's terrible that he did that. And I'm 100% with you. I want to make sure that you understand that as well. I'm 100% with you on this.
I understand. You don't have to explain that side of it. And I'd like to explain the fact I've known John Herdman for close to 20 years. When he coached the New Zealand women, I became friendly with him, and then I got one of his players from New Zealand to come to Rutgers. When he was the coach of the Canadian national team, my assistant, Karina LeBlanc, who is now the general manager of Portland, was a member of that team, and I had frequent conversations with him about all different players. And, we haven't been in regular contact since when he went over to the men's side. But I'm just saying, and like Nick said in his cut, respect for him as a coach, what he's done with all those programs, all this is true. He got himself into hot water in Qatar for saying something ridiculous and asinine, after the Belgium game. And then he
I think it was before the Belgium game, right?
Or before Croatia. No, it was before
Croatia. It was after Belgium, before Croatia, right? Exactly.
So so we have that. So he opens his mouth a little too frequently, and we're defending Nick because Nick has denied it emphatically. And there's, and you're going to rely on a 19-year-old kid? Sorry. Have you ever had a teenager in your life? I've had two. And you know what teenagers do? I don't care if they're professional players. I don't care what. You know what teenagers do? They stretch the truth, or sometimes they don't tell the truth at all. And they don't do it because they're hateful or they're just.
Well, we don't have any proof of anything one way or the other. I'm not going to speculate.
I can now make assumptions too, right?
Well, I don't know. That doesn't make it right. Don't make assumptions. Don't accuse other people of making assumptions, saying it's wrong, or they make your own. Don't do that. What I will say is that maybe John Herdman after today will give you a call.
Maybe he will. Maybe he will. If he doesn't,
maybe he's standing outside your house right now.
But if he doesn't know saying that is wrong, then I know he knows that was wrong.
I'm really surprised that they didn't walk any of this back on Monday. I mean, I'm shocked.
No, he stayed.
I mean, I thought that they were going to, all right,
He stayed the course.
let's dial it down. And I was like sitting there going, are you really doubling down on this? Well, you have no proof of anything?
Well, he's supporting his players, which is another reason why people that play for Herdman really like him. You know,
but you can support your players without killing somebody else.
He's right. Well, that's still wrong. But I'm saying he's standing up for his player. This is all, you know, his story. So, all right. But as you can tell, I'm emotional about it, and I'm. It's just too bad because it was really a tremendous win for
it's a great win for New York City. They played really well. They were, you know, they suffered the first 10 minutes. I mean, for the first 10 minutes, they barely got over midfield. I was wondering, you know, if this game was going to be like that the entire time, or how long would it take for New York City to start, you know, doing things better, which they did. And then, you know, they got that handball and they got the penalty kick. And then, but even just before the penalty kick, they were already starting to create a lot of chances and they were starting to look dangerous. But the first 10 minutes of that game, that didn't look good at all.
By the way,
and then it got better.
The third consecutive game that New York City has started slow. So they need to solve that because
they do. And then, by the way, there's one thing that you remember when you were mentioning how Nick, you know, the lineup changes and how they worked out for him. 2 out of the last 3 games, okay?
Yeah.
He's picked gold out of his hat. Because if you against Charlotte, when he took Baccarat, everybody in the building probably thought that Mijatovic was going to be coming into the game, and he put Alonso Martinez into the game, and Alonso Martinez scored the winning goal. Okay? That's huge. All right. You picked the right guy. I don't know what Mijatovic would have done had he played, but he picked Martinez, and Martinez won the game for him. All right. Then they lost 2-0, and you know nothing that they tried worked.
But you forgot about another one. He inserted Julian Fernandez over Hannes Wolf. Now Hannes Wolf was nursing an injury, so Nick claimed it was a fairly easy decision. But still, the change was made. It could have been somebody else other than Fernandez, and then Fernandez got that assist on the Parks goal. So
exactly. So those are 2 really good changes. Then you know they had the loss against Colorado where absolutely nothing worked. And then against Toronto, he puts Malachi Jones in the game, and Malachi, you know, first timer off the post. What a great goal that is! And then Perea. I mean, and you know, everything that he did worked. Yeah. And they got out of there. They got out of there with a solid win against a very good team that had only lost once at home this season, and that was to Sporting Kansas City. This is a good Toronto team. This isn't the 2023 or 2024 version of Toronto, or rather the 2023 or 2022 version of Toronto. 2024 version was in 3rd place when New York City played them. Okay, they were playing very, very well. They were playing well at home, well on the road. They took FC Dallas apart in their previous game. You know, it's a solid win in a place where they hadn't won in their last 3 previous matches.
Yeah, no question about it, man. So now it's Philadelphia on a Wednesday night. 13 MLS games. Let's see, are they all kicking off at the same time? Well, many of them at 7:30, a few at 8:30, and then 3 late games at 9:30 or 10:30. But 13 games tomorrow night. So it's an MLS extravaganza where over the weekend on Saturday, Roberto, I don't know if you saw this, 52 goals were scored. So
yes,
like 5 of those goals were scored in the New York City at Toronto game. But that's the most goals scored on a single day since 57 were scored on August the 6th, 2022. And of course, you know what August the 6th is. You don't know?
No.
That's my birthday, and as I will say to you every year, Roberto, keep my gift under $50. Otherwise, I'd be embarrassed. And by the way, Robin Van Persie also with a birthday on August the 6th.
Very nice.
Yes, and there's a member of the New York City Football Club. Little Mutt and Jeff action here. Crooks and Parks. Keaton Parks is also August the 6th. So there you go. Yep.
I only share mine with some guy, Michael Jordan, who you might have heard of him.
Yep, and there are so many similarities. I can't even begin to.
Exactly. He's almost as talented as I am, I'm sure.
Charlotte beat Nashville 1-0, and that was the only game on Saturday that had less than 3 goals total in that game. CF Montreal up 2-0 on Inter Miami. Miami comes back and wins 3-2. Suarez got to his 11th goal, but then Christian Benteke got to his 11th. So, and Chicho Arango, I think, has 11 too. So there's 3 guys at the top of it with 11 goals. And Miami unbeaten in 7. They've won 5 straight. And in those 5 games that they won, Roberto, at least 3 goals every game. They are an entertaining crew. That's for
They
sure.
are. When that guy Messi's on the field, they tell me he's good. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, which we've talked about, right? They've lost three home games in a row. They haven't been playing well at all, just in general. And they had a 1-0 lead on Orlando. And then before they knew what the heck was happening, they were down 3-1. Then Gazdak had a penalty, and then he missed a penalty.
Yeah.
Which is shocking, because that does not happen very
That's
often.
his only miss an MLS play, and I appreciate you sending over some of the stats on that. But he's had over
Sean,
30 penalties. Over 30 penalties.
My boy Sean did a great job.
That's one. Hey, let's. We only have a few minutes left, Roberto. Let's kick it around. Well, we've talked a lot about Canada tonight, Roberto, and this is incredible. But on our little group chat, Ariel, and maybe you chimed in, Maddie chimed in, a little bit, that it's not like completely out there as a unique thing. With the help of with the financial assistance of Montreal, CF Montreal, Toronto FC, and the Vancouver Whitecaps, Jesse Marsh has been named the head. Well, his title is MLS Canada Men's National Team Coach. I tell you, I saw this. I said, I thought I had to check the calendar. No, April 1st. No, that's already gone. Really unusual contract for Jesse Marsh. Obviously,
what does that mean?
They're paying a majority of his salary.
No. I get that part. What is this MLS? The title?
MLS can't, because they're paying his salary.
Yeah. Well, the Canadian, look, Glenn, we've spoken about this before, and we've spoken on on Twitter, social media about this before. Canadian Soccer Federation is an absolute freaking mess. It's been for years. This is nothing new. I mean, they don't support the women's program. They barely supported the men's program, and they somehow they can't figure out a way to make money. When the U.S. national team, both men and women, get great crowds and the whole thing, and they're able to, be able to finance themselves pretty nicely, to say nothing of all the sponsors. And Canada has been doing this for years, where it has been an absolute mess, and they can't get good coaches and things. Now they've figured that out, and they're doing much better. But my God, it's like, how, we respect Canada in so many ways, and there's like so many things that they do so well, and it's such a lovely country, and they seem to have their act together so much better in many ways than the U.S. that they have their act together. And then the Canadian Soccer Federation just blows all that away.
Well, this is like, when Greg Berhalter was hired and Jay Berhalter, was in an executive position with U.S. Soccer. It's like, that just seemed, it just had a bad taste to it. Whether
for sure, it smelled of nepotism like crazy.
But is it? I mean, aren't there potential? I don't know what you think of this. Aren't there potential conflicts of interest when you have 3 MLS sides who are subsidizing, in essence, the head coach of the Canadian national team, as far as maybe their players being selected or
not being selected,
or not being selected? Yes, Coach Marsh, we need Samuel Piette for this game.
Exactly.
Well, no, I mean, they open themselves up to that, man, and Jesse can say whatever he wants about it's, you open yourself up to that. But what an unusual. I'm anxious to hear and read more about it, because this just happened. This was earlier today, I think, right? Or was it yesterday? I can't remember.
Yesterday.
Okay. And this is, how about Jesse Marsh versus Greg Berhalter now? Marsh did a little trolling of Berhalter, although he denies it, regarding it was a couple of things. He does a podcast. Jesse had moved into the media realm and did a podcast with Jimmy Conrad, former national team player.
And funny guy.
And on it, Marsh questioned the selection of Gio Reyna into camp. I think it was before the Jamaica game. And, it was a wide ranging discussion.
Yeah.
And then Greg Berhalter in his post-game press conference after beating Jamaica in what was a horribly played game by the U.S. men's national team, by the way, he makes reference to it. It was bizarre and it was wrong on Berhalter's part, in my opinion. Like, why are you listening to that? Why are you responding to that? You just won the game and you
can listen to it, but just don't acknowledge that you listen to it. At least not publicly.
And then in December, Marsh was on one of these CBS Galazzo things, I think, and described under Greg Berhalter's leadership that the U.S. men had not had a signature win, which you could look towards Mexico, but what I heard from some of Sebastian Salazar, that little thing they do, listen to that.
Football Americas, that's a great show, by the way. So,
but what they were saying is that beating Mexico is no big deal these days. So you don't want to
I won't say it's no big deal. I will say it's expected.
Is it a signature win to hang your hat on?
It's not a signature win anymore. The U.S. So here's my take on this. And remember, I cover both sides of the border as far as that's concerned. U.S. national team is a far superior team than Mexico right now. There's no question. The results have it. The way they play have it. The amount of players that you have in major teams in Europe. You can look at it by any measure that you want. And the U.S. national team is not only superior, it's far superior. The last time that they played, it wasn't even a close game. The U.S. basically did what they wanted. Okay. And that was after that Jamaica game that almost got Berhalter fired, which is really interesting, right? Because he almost get Berhalter fired. And then on the next game, they go out and they smoke Mexico. And now it's all of a sudden the guy is in cement. There's no way that he's leaving. It's really crazy, but that's how quickly fortunes can turn. Yeah. As far as leagues go, the Liga MX is a superior league. Okay. It's a superior league to MLS. But the Columbus Crew right now are in a really good, they're playing great soccer. They're playing great soccer at home. They're playing great soccer within MLS. They've played great soccer in Champions Cup. The fact that they tied Tigres in Mexico and then beat them on penalty kicks. And then they went out and they just absolutely smoked Monterrey, which is probably the team that has the highest payroll in North America. I don't know about the Brazilian teams. I can't, I haven't really checked on that. But as far as CONCACAF is concerned, Monterrey always has like the highest payrolls in North America in CONCACAF. And they went to the BBVA over there, El Gigante de Acero, as they like to call it, which is a nickname. And they smoked them there. They beat them at home, and then they beat them there. And it's great.
You talked about Columbus' form in MLS. Now, they're the defending MLS Cup champions, right? They're in 8th place in the table in the Eastern Conference with only 3 wins in their 11 games. So
but playing 2 tournaments is very tough, as we've seen.
That. I'm going back to what you said about how they're smoking it in MLS too. They're not, man. They're in 8th place, and they're we're understood. They're playing all these games, and it's very difficult. And so, but back, I don't know where you went with this. So, not a signature win for the U.S. over Mexico. Are we in agreement on that, or? I was asking your opinion, actually.
Yeah, but
much more.
I think anytime that you beat Mexico, anytime that you beat a rival, and that is your main rival,
all right.
I think it's a signature. I think it's a signature win, even though right now you're spanking them every time you play them. It's always a signature win.
One more thing, and I love this. So there's more. You've got this trickle effect that the New York City Football Club is doing with the new stadium. So they're putting out which is, I think, obviously from a marketing standpoint. It's a wonderful way and a wonderful approach.
Keep it in the news. Absolutely.
So we saw renderings of the supporter section, including where they can kind of hang a little bit. So let's see this. It's the supporters porch. See that?
Right.
So that's pretty cool. I guess
I want to go there pregame. Are you kidding me?
I know. We gotta get somebody to sub for us one game, and so we can just go hang with the supporters on the supporters porch. But I think this is cool too. So the club put out this tweet today and is asking the supporters, what do you want to give the supporters section as far as what name do you want to give them? And so, I thought I had it queued up here. So I wanted to go through some of the names and see what you thought, Roberto, because I would seek your opinion on this.
Let's go.
Let's see. Hold on. I just got to find it now. I thought I had it up, but you know how things change.
I'm good at writing headlines, right? So, that sort of feels. So, by the way, they've got, you talked about the 1,200 fans that are on the porch. The supporter section inside the stadium, it's going to be pretty large. 3,400 safe standing positions for that for the supporters. That's not, that's very nice.
That's the standing room only. I like that. Yeah, that's good. All right, so let's see. Well, I'll try to give everybody credit too. Patrick Shields says, again, supporters are asked to what they would name the supporter porch. Patrick Shields calls it the ledge, and he puts a picture of pigeons on the ledge of the roof of a building. La Placita.
Very nice.
That's Jonathan Sanchez. The pigeons. That's our friends, the Pigeons NYCFC. The perch, the nest, the coop. Hunter Walker says the nest, the coop, and then says, "Come on, guys, it's obvious." A guy who be places the stoop. Ethan Zombak says the quadwo poku stand. Here's the coop from Big Bend. Brian Carl, the stoop. Ed Blust, the stoop. Michael Allen, the perch. Wow, a lot of coops and stoops. Let's see. I'm just trying to see. Needs to be the perch or the coop. The stoop. The chop shop. In honor of the shops that are
what's being closed down there.
Yeah, the clown.
I used to get my parts from my old Toyota back then.
The chop shop in honor of what was there before. Willett's Porch. No. City Theater. I don't like that. Anyway, all right. Well, so those are some, but I'm sure there'll be a million more that come in.
There'll be more. I understand if you want to continue with the pigeon thing, which I don't know if I'm still, enamored with that.
Why not?
Because
let's get it official. So every commentator across the league is just using pigeons. Let's just do it.
No, I honestly, I look at pigeons as like, they're a nuisance. They're an annoyance.
It's got a New York. It's the pigeons, man. Of course they're annoying. Who cares, man? That's what you want to be.
You succeed, and you're from Jersey. I mean, to a lot of people, pigeons are just like flying rats.
Well, you could call it. I haven't seen that one come up yet. Here's the bodega. I don't know, the dugout.
For the ledge, La Placita sounds great, by the way. I like that, and there should be something in Spanish there. One of the things I want to see the stadium do, by the way, is like every damn sign that in that stadium that is, for sections or anything else, everything's got to be bilingual. Everything's got to be English and Spanish. So, hey, New York City, you listening to me? Everything's got to be in English and Spanish. And same size, not English and then, Spanish, where you need a microscope or something to see it.
Yes. All right, well.
Hey, they're in the middle of freaking Queens. That whole area is all Hispanic.
I'm not.
And the team is like, it should be for everybody. So,
Babel for me. Babel. That might be my next project. I gotta. All right, so we've covered quite a bit. The great win in Toronto, first road win since last July. The melee afterwards, the post-game comments, repercussions. We still don't have official word from MLS regarding discipline, but for New York City FC, it appears that only one player will be suspended. That's Strahinja Tanasijevic, who came in late to make it a 5-back system, and then got into it with Sean Johnson, who was suspended for one game, the former New York City FC keeper. And then we went through a lot of other stuff. But Roberto, let's see, tomorrow it's 6 o'clock for Roberto and Ariel for their pregame live. It'll be 6:45 for myself and Sal Rosamilia filling in for the great Maddie Lawrence tomorrow. Well, for our pregame live. And then 7:15 is our live commentary pregame for both English and Spanish on the New York City FC network. And tomorrow you got to sync. You got to actively sync. You don't have Apple to help you out or anything. You have to actively sync your English and your Spanish. So let's get that done tomorrow. And
we're ahead. We're way ahead. You got to pause us and let Apple catch up a minute and change later. We're about 5 seconds ahead of the feed. I mean, rather behind the feed, and they're about a minute and change behind the feed. So just keep that in mind. So you can pause us and then let it go. New York City trying to stop a 5-game losing streak against Philadelphia. They haven't won since that game in 2021 that we mentioned. So they've got to figure that out. Philly's playing horrible lately, and they have major problems on defense. They're leaking goals. And so
did you see Curtin in his presser today? They've allowed all competitions 30 goals in 15 games, and 11 of those 30 goals have come from outside the penalty box, which I find that's amazing. And one of them was in that 3-2 home loss to Seattle a couple of games ago. And Raul Rui Diaz, there was a miscommunication between Jose Martinez and Jacob Glesnes. I think it was Glesnes or Elliott. And then Rui Diaz just knifed in between them. And from 45 yards out, he just, the keeper was, you know how the keepers are taught to be connected. So they paid the price there on the turnover. But anyway, thanks to Shane and Jimmy, our producers for this one. Thanks to you for watching us live. And if you only saw the last 15 minutes or something, we'll have the whole thing available for you a little bit further down the road, like later tonight. You know? Yeah. All right. So for Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks on NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.